Welcome to the seventh and final episode of the Seeking Wisdom in Stories podcast. In this episode, we'll explore the idea of lasting hope and how its aspirational quality is a motivation for characters and stories. What is lasting hope? It's something that a character puts their fundamental trust in for the long term. It adds value and purpose to their lives moving forward. It underscores the meaning of their lives and their true calling. In stories, we might see lasting hope shaping the core need for the protagonist. By the story's end, what the protagonist truly needs is a goal reflecting the values he's internalized over the course of a journey. The protagonist has made decisive choices, fought the battle, and has earned the goal reflecting a changed heart. Lasting hope is at the center of this change. On the surface, lasting hope can sound like an abstract concept. It challenges the worldview of our characters and ours as well. Stories generally are finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. We usually don't know what happens after the story ends unless there is a continuation of it in a sequel or an ongoing series. So a story's ending makes a statement on a character's physical, mental, and emotional well-being. If we assume a story has an ending, then maybe looking at how the story ends and what it says about the character's hopes might give us clues to why the idea of lasting hope is a complicated subject in storytelling. Is love a viable example of lasting hope? We could think of the fairy tale romance where two characters fall in love after overcoming obstacles. If there's an ending where the lovers are reaffirmed in their love for each other, then there is this feeling we have in hoping their love will last. This is the ending we see in numerous fairy tale films like Disney's Snow White or Cinderella. The common message we get from these stories is that love conquers all, i.e., love prevails. So we're cued into putting our lasting hope in finding a love like these fairy tale characters. But does romantic love last? Anyone in the real world could see the scores of broken relationships and heartaches that plague generations. On the other hand, there are stories where a character is caught between the love of career or material achievement versus the love of family or meaningful relationships. We can look at the film The Incredibles and see how Mr. Incredible is caught between his self-absorbed desire to revive his superhero career and the well-being of his family. When he's captured by the villain Syndrome, Mr. Incredible is led to believe that his family died trying to rescue him. It's at this moment when he realizes that his selfishness has cost him dearly. So the film lands more toward putting value on meaningful relationships with family. But then again, there are plenty of stories about family dysfunction and trauma. Like romantic love, are we putting too much of our hope in family relationships? After all, even the most life-giving of relationships are finite with the span of our lifetimes. There's inherent risk in committing to a love relationship or to family ties. We all know that when we put our trust in another person, we risk getting hurt. That's the risk we run in giving and receiving love. We put our hopes in things that are ultimately finite. We risk the loss of those relationships with time. Is it possible that this concept of lasting hope breaks our typical story framework? Stories about lasting hope may be hard to find because they often reflect the values and worldview of the storyteller. So to even broach a topic like this, the storyteller has to clarify if he even thinks of lasting hope as possible according to one's value system. In the original Star Wars trilogy, Luke Skywalker sees the Force ghosts of Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, and his father Anakin Skywalker at the end of The Return of the Jedi. We're left with the sense that the Force guides the light side and the dark side across the universe, always keeping that balance. So for the Jedi, there's hope in the Force. In the book The Last Battle by C.S. Lewis, which is also the final book in the Narnia series, the Pevensey children, except for Susan, discover at the end that they were killed in a train accident back in the real world. Aslan the lion has whisked them away, back to Narnia, but now they are in the true Narnia, which seems to imply a setting like heaven in the afterlife. In his text, Lewis reveals the Christian worldview that lasting hope is present in a life after death. Here, life in the earthly realm is not the end, and the sorrows of the present world will find resolution in the afterlife. Maybe the thought of lasting hope draws out our natural curiosity to ask, is this all that there is to life? Is this all that there can be in the story of our characters? We start venturing into the realm of philosophy and theology when we wonder what happens after this lifetime. If lasting hope motivates us to move through our lives, then what are we basing that hope on? Perhaps the stories that touch our hearts the most don't give us the exact answers to these questions, but they help point us toward an ongoing search for answers that will satisfy our souls. Thank you for listening to this 7th and final episode of the Seeking Wisdom in Stories podcast. I appreciate you taking time to listen in on this audio journey, and I hope it sparked questions in your own thinking that can bring greater insight into your lives.